friends. Some people have them. I don't. I don't know where I was going with this. Anyways, today I'm going to be talking about Tomodachi Game because I saw it a few days ago and now I feel like talking about it, so yeah. In short, 5 friends are trapped in a dubious looking game show where they have to go through challenges which are designed to break apart their friendship. I recommend you go watch the first few episodes of the anime which are out at the moment because I can't be bothered giving an in-depth rundown, but I will be talking about why this show is absolutely amazing. Mostly. Also, I'll be going into manga spoilers because there's literally only 2 episodes of the anime out and that's not enough to analyze anything. So yeah, I'll try to stay as broad as possible, but like, yeah, there will be spoilers. At its core, Tomodachi Game is about manipulation. Most of its stages involve pitting one person against another in a competition of the mind. Although I'd say that the execution is not as crisp as something like Death Note or Classroom of the Elite, because it has a tendency of leaning towards impossible gambles and inhuman levels of deductive reasoning that just aren't theoretically possible. Think like No Game, No Life, although this isn't really a massive problem because it's still very entertaining for what it is, and by the very nature of the show, I don't think there was really a way they could have done it without doing it like this. It hasn't become very evident as of what we've seen in the anime, but for those of you who've seen Classroom of the Elite, just imagine episode 12, but put that at the end of every single challenge. The usual progression includes a few chapters showing the game, and then at the end there would be a huge plot twist, which is usually honestly quite surprising, even once you're expecting it because it's happened very many times. And honestly, like, the number of layers on top of every calculation by each of the players is really insane and quite interesting to watch. One of Tomodachi Game's greatest assets is its characters. The 5 main characters of the main cast are all very unique and play well into each other. In shows like No Game, No Life, apart from the 2 main characters, the other characters were all somewhat forgettable. However, Tomodachi Game's characters were all very interesting with their own separate backstories, ambitions, and motives. This made the traitor theme even more engaging because we were invested in all of the characters, and we knew that there would be wildly different consequences depending on who the traitor actually was. I don't want to delve too deep into each character individually, because I assume many people here haven't read the manga, but in essence, all the characters are all quite well written. They all have pretty obvious character traits such as being the airhead, or the spoiled kid, or the child genius, etc. But what sets these characters apart is that you can't really predict what they're thinking. They all have motives and backstories which lead them to make decisions that go against their character tropes and what you'd think they'd decide. And the depth given to each character really adds to the engagement of the show as a whole, as it increases the mystery element and it just makes the whole show a lot more unpredictable. Mystery plays a really important element throughout Tomodachi Game. From the beginning, we were given a short sample of the lives of each of the characters. However, as the story progresses, the narrative we were given becomes more and more convoluted. We learned that the relationships are in fact not as simple as we first see, and there are many deeper themes in play. There are lots of contradictions in the stories given by the main cast. We as the viewer constantly have to consume the narratives of each of the characters in order to slowly craft the true story in our head. However, every time we think that everything suddenly makes sense, we find new information that contradicts that. This was especially well done in relation to the reveal of the traitor. We find out that after all these layers upon layers of lies, there lies one truth that doesn't seem too far extrapolated. This was one of the main reasons why I stayed up several nights unable to stop reading. There was just constantly new information provided to us, and we also had Yuuichi to act as our unreliable narrator who would logically, yet misleadingly, formulate narratives based on the evidence we had. This was what made it so much more engaging. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue that Yuichi is the best protagonist ever. That position already belongs to Shido from Dead Alive. I will argue, however, that Yuichi is perfect for the story he is in. His characterization is a little problematic at times, as some of his actions are saved by plot armor, and he sometimes acts a little too edgy. Aside from that though, his dialogue and internal monologues really help move the story along, and help the viewer understand the true extent of what is going on. He's an unreliable narrator, as stated before, and adds a lot to what is good in Tomodachi Game. His motives and behaviors are very satisfying, as he is for the most part acting very evil. He is very well written and very interesting to see in action, as you can never really expect what he will do. Ultimately, he is a very well written protagonist. But in the end, all of this doesn't really matter, does it? At the end of the day, all that most people want to do is have a good time, and I had a good time with this show. It was engaging all the way through, even though there were some parts that were arguably worse than others. The characters and plot were entertaining enough so that I didn't really care when I saw the occasional impossible deduction and the occasional plot hole. This show grabs you by the neck from the very beginning and holds onto it until you reach chapter 92, and then have an existential crisis because you don't know where the last several days of your life has gone, and it's going to be an unspecified amount of time before they release the next chapter where they'll partially resolve this cliffhanger and throw in another bigger cliffhanger on you. So yeah. Also, just as a side note, apparently in 2017 they released a live action of Tomodachi Game. I didn't realize that until just now when I was searching it up. I mean, for some reason, when I saw these live action images that I've been looking through, I was just like, yeah, that's probably coming out in like 2050. But nope, it's out. And here's a random clip of it I found.
して勝ったのゲームコイントスゲームです当てた